Good morning and welcome to Heartland Makes and Outdoors. This morning we're going to be doing a real quick video on building a upper cabinet for your shop or your archery shop, whichever you want to do. This is our woodworking / archery shop. So you can see I've got a bunch of different junk that I needed to organize, trying to get it off the workbench. So real quick, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this, pass along some tips on how you can make your cabinets easier, quicker, and be more efficient. And you can build this with just a half a sheet of plywood. So let's get to the video. Okay, so real quick what we're going to be doing, I'm just going to run through this. I've already got the video made and I'm just going to be basically doing the voiceover. I'm going to talk you through and walk you through and show you what we're doing as we do this build process. It's going to be real simple, real quick. Again, it's a half sheet of plywood, so we're going to start out with the plywood, putting it up on the sawhorse. We're over on the what I call the entry side of the wood shop, for where I break down everything over there and then we go through the rest of the shop, and it just kind of makes a circle pattern just so that it's more efficient for me. So we're going to start out with breaking these down. Now what you're going to see me doing is I'm measuring over exactly 12 inches. All we're doing right now is we're just cutting the wood down. These are not going to be the final cuts. We're going to in turn take them over to the table saw and we're going to cut both edges so that we got a good clean cut. So right now we're just going to go through the process, and I'm actually going to go all the way through this because I'm going to build more than just one. So this entire sheet of plywood I'm cutting up, you'll see me measuring over. It's going to be 12 inches. I realized that the curve of the blade is going to make it less. If you try to cut on the other side of that 12-inch mark, when you get down to your fourth piece, you're going to be significantly less. So what I'm doing, and what we're going to, the trick here, is everything just needs to be consistent. Don't get hung up on it needs to be 12 inches, because if you run your tape measure and you mark it off at 12 inches, by the time you get to that last piece, you're going to be at least, let's just say 3/8 or less than 12 inches because of the curve of the saw blade. Again, these are just rough cuts. I'm using just the skill saw to break it down into more manageable pieces. After we get them cut down in the 12-inch pieces, we're going to run over here to the table saw. You're going to see me. I'm going to rip a straight edge off of all 4 pieces. Again, I'm doing this so that I can make 2 cabinets, but for the video purposes, we're just building this one cabinet. So I'm going to run it down. I don't know what the measurement is, so let's just say it's 11 3/4. I may actually have a video of me setting it up. So we're going to set it up on 11 3/4, cut one edge off with this good blade. This is a plywood / melamine blade on the table saw. So we're going to cut that, and then I'm going to restack the wood over here in the front of the table saw again with that fresh clean cut edge back on the side of the table saw, so that when I go to pick it up, that clean edge is now going to be on the fence. So the next cut we make is probably going to be, and again, I may have actually got the video of this, but let's just call it 11 1/4. Again, we're just cutting thin strips off so that we have a smooth edge on all 4 boards. The other key thing here is we're pre-cutting all these to the same width, so when we get ready to do the glue up, nothing's going to be off. So make sure when you're building your cabinet, this is kind of a pro tip if you will, when you're building the cabinet, cut the material you need at that distance on your saw. Now yes, you could readjust your fence and get it close, but if you do it like this and you cut them all the same, it doesn't matter if it's 11 1/4, 11 3/8, that measurement is ill regardless, because they're all going to match. And that's the key when you're trying to build it and get everything to glue up right. We want nice straight edges and we want good 90-degree corners when we get ready to cut it. My cuts, when we start cutting down the sides, we're going to cut all 3 shelves over there at the miter saw station. The miter saw is fine-tuned for a 90-degree cut. I don't really care if it gets a little bit of the edge. If you guys, this is for a wood shop. I mean, this isn't for a custom home $300,000 house. It's for the wood shop. You guys, if you want to be more particular with when you're cutting down your lengths for the shelf length and then your sides, you can actually tape and still get away with the miter saw. The reason I like the miter saw is because we're cutting these down into 8-foot length boards. If you were to use that 8 foot, you'd have 6 foot hanging off one side of your table saw. In my mind, that's just not safe. So let's make sure that your crosscut saw is set up. It's a sliding dual compound miter saw. It doesn't really matter what you have. Just make sure it's set up on a 90. That's real easy to check. Check your owner's manual, and you normally almost every saw. My DeWalt had it. This Bosch that we're using now, because my DeWalt died, it's got a way to fine tune it. Sorry about that. Siri thinks I'm talking to her. So that's going to be the next part, is we're going to cut them all down into the right pieces. So we've got the two sides and all three shelves. They're all exactly the same now. So when we get ready to glue up, it's going to be a lot easier. Now we're going to go back to the table saw, and we're going to take the two sides and we're going to cut a dado joint. I knew when I started out that I was going to be cutting my trim at 1.5 inches. So when I make this first cut on the top and bottom of both of these shelves, I want it to where it's going to come out 1.5 inches. What I can use for that is the actual piece of trim. Use that on your saw blade against your fence, and then that way you're a full 1.5 inches, or just use a tape measure. It doesn't really matter, but make sure that you're using your dado. We're going to set the dado stack up in the saw. We're going to do the top and bottom of both sides, so that way they're all 1.5 inches, and that's your first critical measurement, if you will, if you're going to have a critical measurement. After that, we're just going to kind of split the difference. I think I measured 12 inches up, so one of these is a little bit taller than the other. It doesn't really matter. You can actually get out a center rule and get it right dead center if that's what you want to do. If it's a wood shop, I don't really care. It wouldn't matter if it was in the kitchen, because you're still going to need one shelf a little bit taller than the other for cups or dishes or whatever, so it doesn't matter. So we've got the top and bottom cut. The next thing on the table saw is we're going to rip, or we're going to cut another dado right in the center. Now from here, this is going to go up real easy, because the glue up's going to be real easy. We're going to glue it up. Since everything's cut all identical, both sides are identical, and the shelves are all cut identical. We now, when we're at the glue up stage of this cabinet build, we're now at the glue up stage of this cabinet build. It's going to be real simple, guys. Glue it up. After you get it glued up, you'll see me measuring from corner to corner to make sure it's square, and then we're done. Go take a break, go eat lunch, go do whatever. When we're done with that, I'm going to do a real quick stain job on the ends of this. I'm kind of making all of my cabinets in the shop and the wood shop kitchen, they're all matching. I've gone with a gray, and then this is a red oak stain on the trim. So after you get done with that, we're going to cut down again. We're going to lay our side pieces down, and then we're going to cut these longer pieces, and we're going to use these set in place so that you can get a good measurement for this, for your length. Again, we're going to cut them all three the same length on the miter saw. You could do this on the table saw, but again, for me, using the longer board, I'd rather have it. I've got a lot more support over there on that table, and to me it's much safer than the saw stop. So that's what we're using, is we're using the Bosch miter saw, the compound miter saw. Cut all three of these real quick. We're going to jump over to the Craig jig. I'd normally leave it set up because we've got a ton of cabinets that we're still got to build for the shop and the wood shop kitchen. We're going to glue up, we're going to drill both sides, and then put it together. When you're getting this measurement right here, what I like to do, and this is another little quick pro tip, make sure that this is flush, because if this piece is sticking up a little bit, and you're, say you've got a piece of glassware or whatever, if it catches on that when you're pulling it off, there's a good chance that you're going to drop that glass and break it. So I like to make sure that this all lines up smooth. Again, you can get your top and bottom glued together and screwed together, lay your frame back on top of the shelf, and then make sure that you mark that good so that it's pretty much flawless. I'd rather err on the side of it being a little bit low and you have a little bit of a lip putting glasses in than it catch on the lip pulling them off. Now, another real quick pro tip: if you accidentally make a mistake and this is off a little bit, use a flush trim bit and trim this off, because even if this one rail was a little bit thinner to the eye, nobody's going to notice it. If it's a 1/16 or a 1/4 inch, they may actually notice, but just use a flush trim bit. You won't be able to go all the way to the end because you'd end up cutting into your stiles. So just keep that in mind. It is kind of a quick trip so that nobody, when they're pulling the glass off, dumps it. Again, this is in the archery side of the shop. We're not worried about glasses. After it's glued up, you're going to see me go around the four corners of the case. I'm going to drive a little tack in there. It's basically a finish nail. I'm going to clip it off. It's going to be sticking up about a 1/4 inch above, so that way when we get ready to lay the face frame on, those little nails will kind of hold it up off the glue. You can line it all up, and then when you get it lined up the way it needs to be, you just smash them down and clamp it. Again, go take another break, go shoot your bow, go do whatever you need to do, but give that glue at least an hour before you start messing with it. And then the final thing that I do is I go in and I cut more rails for this back, and that's going to be the same thing. We're going to run them in with the glues and screws and clamp it so that you have something to screw it into the wall with once you get the cabinet built. The last thing that we're going to do, I'll show you real quick. It's easy. Basically, I lift this shelf up by myself. I've already got the holes pre-drilled, and I can also see the little pin nails. So another quick tip, if you don't know, if you find a stud, and you guys, any of you have one of these east wing, I call it an east wing, but I think it's actually est wing. If you have one of these 16-inch east wing framing hammers, if you know you've got a stud, say against one of these wall plates, you can use this handle because it's 16 inches on purpose. That's why it's a framing hammer. Here's your next stud right here. I can promise you it's right there. If whoever framed your house up or your barn went on 16-inch centers, that's a quick, easy way to find the next stud without using a stud finder or spending all day looking for nails. So again, guys, I brought that cabinet over here. I set it on top of the workbench. I found where the holes were going to be. I pre-drilled the holes, and I'm using 3.5-inch screws because there's not going to be a ton of weight in this thing, but I don't want it falling off the wall. So it's going to be going through the wood siding, which is 1/2 inch thick, into the studs so that it's got a good solid purchase. You don't want that thing falling off. For added security, I have gone in and run some screws down in the back into this. So you'll I don't know if you actually see that. The only other thing that you're not going to see in the video, when I got done, I knew this was going to be on the archery side of the shop. I just pre-drilled a bunch of these little pegs that I can hang the bows on, and put a little bit of glue on that, bam it in. It's simple. You guys probably know how to do that. If you don't, I can do a detailed video for you on that. So again, we appreciate your likes, comments, and subscribes. We've got a bunch of fun archery stuff coming up, and we got some more cabinet builds coming along as well, and ways that we're going to be, any of the things that I'm going to be building along in the shop to help me with the organization and just setting the shop up for the rest of its life, the rest of my life, we're going to be sharing with you guys also, because I think it could be something that you could learn from. If you enjoyed our video, give us a big thumbs up. If you got anything out of this video you think somebody else could, maybe some of the tips we're sharing with you, if somebody else could learn, please share our video with them. Again, we appreciate each and every one of you, and may you have a blessed week.